podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.
PNR.
Blueberry.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
The Big G, Tokyo Town, StompDown.
Just one more day to go, folks.
Yep.
Welcome to the Big G Tokyo Town StompDown. I'm TC Kirkham.
Hi, I'm Kim Brown.
It is May 30th, 2019. Mm-hmm. That means we've been doing these for 30 days.
Yes, it does.
That means tomorrow is the 31st day of the 30 fun days of Godzilla.
Yep.
And you know what that means? Tomorrow is the release of Legendary Films' new Godzilla King of the Monsters. Even louder than normal, I would have expected. And she can't wait. But we still have one more film to do.
Yes. Before we go any further, I would like to just say one tiny thing. I would like to apologize to you because I have been kind of obnoxious this week, kind of bouncing all over the house about the movie coming out tomorrow. And I've been I've been kind of, I
didn't even notice you've done anything outside of the show.
Well, no, okay. I have. And so I would like to apologize for my exuberance because we all know when I'm usually exuberant, things break because I'm not exactly a dainty flower. And I'm also sorry we went to see this. This was my fault. I mean,
well, yeah. And it's we seem to be on the minority. I'm like, I don't know.
I know.
We're going back now to on day 30 of the Tokyo Town StompDown. We are traveling back in time to 2016. Mm-hmm. Not very far back.
No, not very far back.
And the film that is the 29th film, Godzilla, produced by Toho, 31st film overall, and the third reboot by Toho of the Godzilla franchise. Mm-hmm. Shin Godzilla, or Shin Gojira, better known or also known in Japan as Godzilla Resurgence, which I was unaware of. There are a lot of firsts about this film, and we'll talk about those when we get through it, but we went to see this in America. It had a release through Fathom Events at first, and then went into general release in Los Angeles and New York for a while. But we saw the Fathom Events version. We went to the Regal to see it, and it was like, okay.
Was it summer or fall?
It was October.
It was October. It was October. Yeah. Okay.
And so it was like, okay.
Yes.
That's when we found out that we really don't like Regal's new recliner system because of the trays they have.
Yeah, they really have. Awful. The Regal Cinema Fenway has these trays set up where you can put your drinks and popcorn and things like that.
And they're nice, but then you have trouble getting up.
Yes.
Because they get in the way.
They do. You can't move them.
Right. Unlike the ones at where we went to see Avengers Endgame, which you could move and keep not have... Mm-hmm. And I've already forgotten what that was. Showplace Icon.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah. And if you're someone that has mobility issues like me, it wasn't an easy thing to get out of the seat and try and,
We waited for everybody else to get out of the row. Because we bought tickets at the last minute. There was like 5 seats left.
Yeah.
We got stuck all the way up in the top
row.
row.
Way in the top row. And it also the carpeting didn't help. It wasn't. I kept slipping on the carpet. That was the problem.
Was it the carpet or a bare floor? I don't remember.
Whatever it was with the issue with the floor, my shoes kept slipping.
Okay. So anyway, let's get into what this movie was about. They rebooted it again.
Yes. We have completely and utterly and totally hit rewind. Actually, we've hit erase because we're starting from complete scratch.
Yep.
The Coast Guard of Japan comes across an abandoned ship in Tokyo Bay. It's a yacht, and it's an abandoned yacht. While they're checking out why the yacht is completely bereft of people, their boat winds up being destroyed, And the Aqua Line, which is in Tokyo Bay, which is a tunnel, one of those bridge tunnel things, it is flooded because something has crashed into it. So now this is, I'm sorry, when you get into political stuff, it takes forever just to say the name of the title of someone before you get to actually their name. The Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary, wow, that's a lot of words, Rando Yaguchi, sees a video of what happens and has a theory, which is extremely disturbing. And said theory is that whatever caused this wasn't an earthquake, it wasn't any kind of terrorist attack, it wasn't an accident, as in, oh gosh, something slipped. This was caused by an actual living being, a living thing. And his theory turns out to be 110% correct, because a news show that's reporting on the damage and stuff like that also happens to catch the terrifying and pants-wetting sight of a gigantic tail in the water. And obviously, if the tail is pretty big, logic would dictate that what's attached to the tail is probably along the lines of, oh good lord, look at the size of that thing.
Except it wasn't.
Well, we're not there yet.
I know.
The Prime Minister naturally has to go out there and try and calm the public, who are freaking the hell out, because giant monster. And since apparently we've completely erased the memories of everybody in Japan, they have no idea what's going on. So, sorry, that was a little bit of sarcasm. Sorry. The Prime Minister's whole thing is to tell the people to calm down, that the creature isn't going to be able to get on land and attack anybody because it's so big that if it tries to get out of the water, it won't be able to move because of its size. I don't entirely know how you come to that conclusion.
It's too heavy to move on land, is basically what they're saying.
Basically what they're saying. Okay. But that's not the case in the least. The creature does come on land and goes through the district of Tokyo that's called Kamata, and it's doing what monsters tend to do when they're in a large, populated urban area. Mm-hmm. They knock stuff over and they kill a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. Not intending to. At least it doesn't seem like this being is acting in a hostile manner, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's not like
it doesn't know what it's doing.
No, it's not smashing into buildings.
It's swimming up the river and getting on land.
Yeah, it's not smashing into buildings and gobbling people up or anything like that. The people that are getting killed, it's pretty accidental from the look of things.
And your first reaction to this creature was what?
What the hell is that?
Yeah.
Because
looks like a giant lungfish with no skin.
What we get is what would basically, it looks like this is really gross, and I don't mean it to come off as terrible as it's going to, but it's the only way I can describe it, so bear with me. It looks like somebody flayed a lungfish alive and threw it out of the water. It's this enormous, boogly-eyed, ugly thing. And I'm going, oh, wow.
You're going to give it a complex now, calling it ugly.
Well, it is not attractive. It's not going to win any beauty contests. And I'm thinking to myself, like a dope, oh my gosh, wow, this is what's going to fight Godzilla later in the movie, right? This is going to be really, really cool, right? Oh, Lord, how wrong I was. While it is on land, causing all this chaos, it changes while it's on land. It actually evolves right there, not thumbing its flippers, we'll go with that, at the usual ways of doing evolution where it takes, hundreds of thousands of years. It goes through an evolutionary change on land, and it goes from being this kind of galumphing, dopey-looking thing. I mean, it is dopey-looking. I'm sorry. That's not entirely wrong.
I know.
And it evolves into a not much better-looking thing that can stand up on its back legs. But because it is out of the water And because it doesn't seem to have any outer skin, ew. I'm sorry. I know that was very, very wussy, but...
Well, by this point, it was developing this reddish skin that was not
and
quite...
it was really gross.
Like you get under a burn?
Yeah.
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 Ew.
And it heads back out into the water. So the government is naturally all like, what the hell was that? And the military is all like, what the hell was that? And the people of Japan are like, we're all going to die.
People in Japan were going, what the hell was that?
Yeah. So, I'm not saying the whole thing again. I'm just saying Chief Cabinet Secretary.
Right.
His name is Rando. So it's Rando Yaguchi. Yeah. And Yaguchi is put in command of a task force that is supposed to find out what this thing is, where it came from, and how to get rid of it or destroy it, whichever. So when people are able to actually get back into the areas where this creature tromped all over the place, they can't go in there without wearing, big hazmat suits because the radiation levels are insanely high. So they come to a conclusion that this, whatever it is, draws its energy from nuclear power or or from the energy generated when there's a nuclear, the active nuclear fission, put it that way. So the United States sends an envoy named Kayoko Annie Patterson, who tells them about a very vocal, very anti-nuclear professor who was he was also like run out of his circles and disgraced by his peers and all that kind of jazz. Named Goro Maki, who had been doing work on studying mutated animals and the study of mutation caused when there is a radioactive spill or accident or nuclear attack or whatever. And his whole thing was he was warning people before this ever happened that something like this would happen. And of course, nobody listened because nobody ever does. The scientists in Japan thought he was crazy. The scientists in America thought he was crazy. But as is always the case, prophets never believed in their own hometown. The U.S., in its infinite wisdom, hashtag sarcasm, made it a point to make sure that his theories about all of this stuff would never make it into the public eye, because then people would be going, hey, we should get rid of this stuff, and that would cost a lot of people a lot of money. Allegedly the people that run the government in secret, but we're not going to go into that.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Well, I'm saying, some people believe that. I'm not saying I do. I don't. So as it turns out, the boat at the beginning of the movie, the abandoned boat in Tokyo Bay, that actually belonged to Dr. Maki, and he had left his notes in the boat, all of his research and all this stuff like that before he went wherever he went. They speculate he jumped, or maybe somebody killed him, or whatever this thing is killed him. The thing is, his notes are in code because he likes Dan Brown novels. I don't know. The being, which is given the name Godzilla because of that's what the name that Maki came up with in his research.
How convenient.
Yeah. Has now shown up again, but the thing is, it is twice as big as it was the last time that it was on land. Now, the last time it was on land, it was pretty damn big, so now it's twice as big as pretty damn big. And it winds up coming to shore at Kamakura, which is on its way to Tokyo, which seems to be where it's heading. So the Japan Self-Defense Forces, get all their ducks in a row and all their people armed and ready to go after this thing. But, as can be expected, it does jack squat. Everything they throw at this thing is basically like throwing pennies in an elephant. It's just ping, 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 ping. Everything's just, bouncing off of it. And Godzilla winds up just basically shoving all of their stuff aside and just barreling right into the middle of Tokyo. The U.S. is, the Japanese government has asked the United States for help, obviously, and the U.S. Sends a bunch of warplanes over, and they're bomb the living hell out of Godzilla, which means that they need to get that's the plan. And before the plan can be enacted, they're like, oh wait, we have all these people running around. Yeah, we need to get them out of here. There's annoying things like civilians, and things like that. So there's this enormous evacuation, because of course there is, because you can't have a kaiju movie without at least 90 scenes of people running. The monster doesn't have to be in the scene, just people running. You get the idea. And so a bunch of U.S. planes go over, including some B-2 bombers that are armed with what are called bunker busters. This is a special kind of munition, I guess, missile. I don't know what you'd call it.
It's a weapon system called the Massive Ordnance Penetrator.
Yeah. That sounds kind of dirty. I'm not the only one. You didn't yell at me for a change. I am not the only one that thought that. And this, amazingly enough, actually slows him down a little bit. Not a lot, but it does slow him down a little bit. Enough that people are like, oh gosh, we actually have something that can hurt him. Yeah, but it doesn't hurt him for very long. Because apparently, at some point or another, Godzilla picked up some of whatever Logan has that makes him awesome. And he heals very quickly from being hit with a shite ton of bombs. And winds up showing off what he can do. And what he can do is actually a lot more awesome than what the Americans or the Japanese have been able to fling at him so far, and was actually, coincidentally, the only awesome scene in the movie. When Godzilla opens his mouth and his lower jaw splits apart, and he begins blasting these rays of purple light from his mouth and his dorsal plates, and I think even his tail, and everything that they hit, it just slices through like a warm knife through butter. What?
So they turned him into Zoc from the Herculoids? Wasn't that the big winged things who could shoot lasers from his tail and his eyes?
Yeah, but he can't shoot stuff from his eyes.
No, but he's doing it from his mouth. It's the same basic thing. Well, I don't remember the tail. I remember the dorsal plate.
He had. Okay. Well, I think he had some coming from his tail.
Maybe not.
I was too busy just sitting there with my mouth hung open, going, "Wow, okay, this is actually cool." Needless to say, this causes an F ton of damage, and winds up. One of the things that winds up getting trashed in all of this is a helicopter, which I know some people are going, so what? So naturally, this is obviously a big deal because half the government's just been destroyed. And also 2 of the B-52s, and those things are friggin' expensive. So that's obviously going to tick America off.
Right.
And of course, there is a crap ton of damage in Tokyo itself because these lasers, I mean, would it be accurate to call them lasers? I mean, they look more like lasers than Godzilla's traditional atomic breath, which is more of a flamethrower kind of a deal. They're much thinner.
Actually, Godzilla's atomic breath to me looks like a cross between a flamethrower and a garden hose spout, letting out like steam.
It depends on the movie.
Yeah.
But these are like
yeah,
thin,
they're more precision.
Yeah, and when they hit something, it just slices through it. There's no explode. I mean, there are explosions because there's, but it's a lot cooler. Let's face it. It's devastation, but it's cool looking devastation. That's all that matters. Of course, the thing is now you've got like a bunch of trampled buildings, squished people, and tons and tons and tons of radiation.
And a pooped monster who goes into a dormant state because he's depleted all of his energy at the present time.
Yeah.
I'm
right
like,
there.
What?
It's just like...
right in the middle of Tokyo.
Yeah,
he just kind of becomes a statue.
Wreck, roar, trash, kaboom, destruction, panic, mayhem, terror.
Okay.
Nap time!
Okay.
Yeah. So, the team led by Yaguchi finds out that Godzilla's... the plates on his body, because now he's got plates on his body. He's not all skinned alive looking anymore. He's ugly as hell. He really, I'm sorry. That's another, we're gonna get to that in a minute. But the plates on his body and the way that his body would occasionally expel blood, like especially when he was in the lungfish form, he would just have blood just blue shot of his body, like out of his gills, and it was really, really gross. They think that it acts as like a biological cooling system to keep him from getting overheated. So they come up with the idea that they're going to freeze him by injecting him with enough coagulant to freeze this creature.
Uh-huh.
Hands up who thinks this is the dumbest idea they've ever heard in the history of ever. You can't see it, but we're totally both raising our hands. So they do have some tissue samples, and I'd rather not dwell on from where. And they find out some other things about Godzilla that obviously there was
They walk up and take it off the tail, don't they? Well, it's dormant.
Yeah. I'm being. Yeah, it's not like they went, okay, can you pee in this? It wasn't like that, or anything like that.
You have to do a DNA test.
You get up to his mouth with a cotton swab. I don't really think I'd want to do that.
You don't need that when you're doing that. You just do it with what you get.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Where would you get the water tower to go, yeah, could you whiz in this, please? So anyway, because of the what they find out from his DNA and all that, they find out a couple of things. One of them was obviously a very obvious thing that everybody could have figured out right away. Godzilla is constantly evolving. I mean, we're all constantly evolving. I mean, if you want to take a metaphysical aspect on things, but he's evolving like now, like at a really accelerated rate. And also that this creature can reproduce in an asexual manner. That is not a good thing for the rest of us. Because if it doesn't need they haven't established yet if Godzilla is a male or female.
Well, it doesn't need to. It's
right.
Asexual.
Right. But I'm saying if it doesn't need a mate to, do the hibbity-dibbity to produce little Godzillas, it just can decide to make other Godzillas just happen.
Yep.
This is an exceedingly bad thing. So the United Nations, who has been made aware of all of this stuff, I can't see how they would have missed any of it, but anyway, their whole thing is we're going to use it. We're going to use the nuke. We're going to nuke it. That's their plan. Is the plan that if the people of the military and scientists working together in Japan can't figure out a way to neutralize, destroy, and or chase off Godzilla in a couple of days, they're only giving them a couple of days, the United Nations is going to use thermonuclear weapons to attempt to finish off this creature.
Idiots! Anyway.
Yeah. This is a bad idea. And it's not gonna work.
Okay, all right.
So, needless to say, everybody else who's left in the prefectures around Tokyo have to get the hell out because there might be a nuke coming. And even if there isn't a nuke coming, there's a big forking lizard, right down the road who might wake up at any time and decide to toast your house. Needless to say, the people of Japan are like, yeah, we don't really want to use nukes. We've had enough of that. Thanks. All the same. So, Miss Patterson from America, remember her? She uses some connections she has in politics, because everybody has them, to try and buy some time. Everybody in politics, everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Just wanted to make sure that was what I was like. Everybody doesn't have political connections.
No, everybody in politics knows somebody else, because everybody's always either patting somebody on the back or looking for someplace to stick in the knife.
I gotcha. Okay.
Anyway. She gets some more time for the team that Yaguchi is leading up, because really nobody wants Japan to glow in the dark for the next 150 years. And needless to say, as we mentioned before, most of the government is now gone. And the government that's been put in place, and boy, are there a lot of scenes of that, don't really there's
not enough. Sarcasm. Anyway.
They don't really have a lot of faith in Yaguchi's team or his plan or anything to do with, these people. So, as it turns out, they wind up making a big discovery, and in the fact that the research from Dr. Maki, they find out how to, to break the code of his research so they can read it and figure out what he's found out. So they read it, they figure it out, and they decide to, tweak the plan that they have and do what they need to do in order to freeze Godzilla. They're still going with this idea. And that instead of having to nuke the whole damn country pretty much, which makes sense. So, and we're cutting it as close as humanly possible, as in hours before the nukes show up. This plan is enacted to freeze Godzilla. So the part of the plan involves provoking Godzilla.
Never a smart idea.
That seems like a very, very good way to kill yourself and everybody in your immediate area. The thing is, they're trying to get it to use its atomic breath again and use it to the point where...
Well, no, it would be the first time it's used the atomic breath, not the rays.
Well, yeah, I see what you mean, yeah.
A little bit different.
They're trying to get it to use its breath weapon to the point where it will exhaust itself and not be able to use the weapon for a little bit. And to do that, they have a bunch of drones from America attacking Godzilla to, be like, nah, 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 be like, all like gnats, bugging him and stuff like that. And then after that happens, the team has a bunch of explosives put in buildings and that are close by, and also in a bunch of empty trains the trains are all automated. There's nobody in them that has to jump out at the last minute or anything like that, and they're all loaded up with bombs and stuff. And they're sent towards Godzilla, and that's for the whole point of knocking him off of his feet. And...
Whoops. Mm-hmm. Crashing into a pagoda again.
No, not crashing into a pagoda. And the idea, the plan goes this way. All of these, the buildings go boom, the trains go boom, Godzilla goes crash, and there's a whole bunch of trucks standing by that are full of this coagulant. And the plan is, and actually happens, that, Godzilla, like I said, falls to the ground, and they start pumping this stuff into Godzilla's mouth. Stop snickering. And not you, anybody listening to this.
I wasn't snickering.
This does not happen without casualties, as I think that's probably the biggest duh statement in the history of ever. But amazingly,
the whole collateral damage thing again.
Yep. But amazingly, this incredibly dumb-sounding plan works, and Godzilla is actually frozen in the middle of friggin' Tokyo. It's also found out that the radiation that Godzilla's been spewing everywhere, the half-life of it, which is how long it's radioactive for, it's actually quite short in the realm of how long something is radioactive. And that instead of taking, hundreds or thousands of years for Tokyo to be inhabitable, it's actually going to be able to be inhabitable again, and it'll be rebuilt and stuff like that in a much shorter amount of time. Since Godzilla has been neutralized as a threat, there's not going to be a thermonuclear attack yet. The United Nations does tell Japan and Japan's new government that if Godzilla ever comes out of this frozen state, they're going to immediately launch a thermonuclear strike against him. And immediately means no time to evacuate or anything like that. Now, the end of the film, we're at the very end of the film, and they're panning up over Godzilla's form. And when we get to the tail of Godzilla, we have one of the most WTF scenes I've ever seen in a film. There are creatures on the end of Godzilla's tail. Not like frozen humans or anything like that. There's creatures that were being born from Godzilla's body that were sprouting out from his tail. These things that are like a cross between Godzilla and a human and a xenomorph, I guess. I don't know how else to word it. And that's the end of the film.
Wow, this movie is so messed up. It received 11 nominations at the Japan Academy Awards.
Yep.
What? Winning 7 of them. Picture of the Year, Director of the Year, Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction, Best Lighting Decoration, Best Sound Recording, and Best Film Recording. It lost Best Music, Best Actor, and 2 nominations for Supporting Actress. It also won Screenwriter from the Koma Jumpo magazine, Best Film from the 59th Blue Ribbon Awards, special prizes and at the Yokohama Film Festival, and Best Film, Best Supporting Actress, Best Art Direction, and at the 71st Manichi Film Awards, Best Visual Effects at the 11th Asian Film Awards, and was nominated for Best International Film by the Saturn Awards. All for this thing, which is more politics than Godzilla.
Yeah. Now,
what the hell?
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. This was, we really were looking forward to this.
Oh,
it was Toho's first Godzilla film in 12 years.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
And, oh my God, I hate this movie. I just really hate this movie. It's terrible from beginning to end.
It makes me sad. I can't say I hate it because there's certain movies that I hate. I mean, really hate.
I hate it as a Godzilla film.
It makes me sad as a Godzilla
This
film.
ranks right up there with Roland Emmerich's version.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't understand why the critics went absolutely berserk over this film. They got mixed reviews in America, but the Japanese critics were just over the moon with it. It's because it spent 70% of its time in a parody, a satire of Japanese politics, and 30% of the time with kaiju.
Yeah. I think that's why American audiences weren't into it.
Well, they gave it 71 on Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't know. Well, all I can say is I think you and I are pretty good at reading a crowd.
Oh, the crowd we saw it with was not happy.
No.
They were not happy with this film.
Nope. The one scene that got gasps and oh my gosh and all that was the scene where Godzilla uses the laser breath or however you want to word it.
I think it's interesting though that the whole thing of Goromaki reminds me of, the U.S. prevented him from making his conclusions. He was disbelieved and could, this reminds me of 2 situations going on right now. People who are not in line with global warming thought with the rest of the world and the anti-vaxxers. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I hope this isn't like, what the heck? It's just really scary. The design on the Godzilla when he got to be full size was fine and interesting. It wasn't the traditional Godzilla, but it was definitely an interesting look. But that lungfish beginning, I'm like, what the hell were they thinking?
This is a little bit on a personal level, and it might actually draw some snickers from some people listening to this. I don't really mind if it does. When I saw the trailer for this movie, I was literally shaking with excitement. Mm-hmm. I was so thrilled that Godzilla was going to be back and Godzilla was going to be Godzilla again.
Well, this was, we loved the Legendary film.
Yes.
But this was Toho's Godzilla.
This was Toho's Godzilla. This was where Godzilla was from. And I love the Legendary take on Godzilla. Mm-hmm. But what I saw of Godzilla in the few snippets of things that I'd seen before the film, I was like, this is going to be amazing. And when we actually saw the film, and I didn't, and I don't know if this just shows that I'm a complete nimbus or not, but I did not connect that thing that came out of the water with the King of the Monsters.
No,
I couldn't.
I thought it was going to be what Godzilla ended up fighting too.
Yeah, when I realized that is Godzilla, I swear I felt like my heart slammed into my stomach. I was like, oh no, what have they done? What have they done to my Godzilla? And I realize it's very selfish to take a my Godzilla attitude. I don't
This
mean
is
to
an
sound
interesting
that bad,
thing. I'm just reading some of the critic reviews on Wikipedia. Elizabeth Kerr from The Hollywood Reporter felt that the directors did the big guy justice, close quote, that they created a Godzilla for this era. And while she felt that all the telling or reading rather than showing reduces the story's overall impact, she concluded that, quote, there's an intangible quality to this Godzilla that Edwards, who directed Legendaries, never quite captured. Emmerich doesn't count, and which was always welcome. So it's like nobody even the critics completely do you remember that one scene in Wreck-It Ralph where Vanellope's thing has been thrown clear out here by, we don't know why, by King Candy? Mm-hmm. This is where they put the Godzilla movie from Roland Emmerich.
Yep.
Way out there in space, detached from everything else.
Yeah.
I don't understand, because this movie, maybe it's because maybe we'd understand it more if we followed Japanese politics.
Maybe.
I don't know. But I just found it annoying. And like I said, the redesign of Godzilla was fine. The Ray thing was cool, different, but it wasn't Godzilla.
No, it didn't feel like
And I'm
Godzilla.
sorry, I think it should be up there with Roland Emmerich's version.
I walked out of this movie.
Well, you were frustrated about the seats, for one thing.
For one thing, yeah, but when we were like walking away from the theater and, you know, outside and stuff like that and had moments to think about it, I was so depressed.
Yeah.
I was just so depressed and just, I don't know if disgusted is the right word. I was
irritated.
Despondent, I think.
No, don't do that. That's what you were when the end of at the end of The Last Jedi. That's despondent. You weren't that bad.
That was completely effing wrecked, but
yeah.
that's, you know.
It's interesting that in May of 2018, Toho announced there will not be a direct sequel to Shin Godzilla. They will attempt to follow a shared universe model similar to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Mm-hmm. Which says to me they have Mothra and King Ghidorah films in production or pre-production and ready to go. I think this is a interesting asterisk on the Godzilla franchise overall.
I do too.
I honestly don't think American fans liked it that well.
The audience we saw it with didn't.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe we would have been better if we hadn't done that. Okay, before we go, let me tell you first of all that the final episode of the 31 Days of Godzilla Big G Tokyo Town StompDown will not be up until around 11 p.m. tomorrow night, as we get ready for giving you our first-hand, right out of the theater review of Godzilla King of the Monsters. And so we will, really have a chance, right, first impressions, and we won't give away any of the plot or anything.
Nope.
We don't do spoiler stuff here. So, and if we do, we edit it out.
Yep.
That'll be fun to do, but we're going to come right home and right into the studio, and as soon as it's done, I'm going to get it right up.
Yep.
So you'll be able to hear it probably around 11:15, 11:30 at the latest. I want it up before we go to Saturday, because that means the 31 days or 32 days.
Yep.
So it's an interesting thing, and we hope that you'll be there. And we hope that you guys are all going to enjoy the film when it comes out tomorrow.
Yes.
We hope you've enjoyed our series of this. It's been a lot of fun to do it. It's been the most taxing. I mean, this was even longer than the Avengers Endgame countdown. So, and we actually got most of the Godzilla films in. The only thing we didn't do was Roland Emmerich's. And
AKA
the three
Fluffy
that
the
came
Giant
after
Iguana.
this as anime, which were Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, and Godzilla the Planet Eater.
Which I have heard nothing but negative stuff from most of the fans that have seen these. At least online. At least the ones online offering their opinions.
You can see all three of those on Netflix. They're available there. And you can take a look at Stars Encore Action, who are running a great deal of the older Toho films in their original form with subtitles rather than dubbing. We actually watched, she's been watching them all week.
Yep.
I watched Godzilla King of the Monsters with you. We watched Rodan last night.
Yeah, Godzilla versus the Thing.
Yeah, you
I
watched that, yeah.
Well, Godzilla versus Mothra.
Yeah. And
Hi, Michael, by the way.
They're good stuff.
If you're listening.
We are hopefully going to have lots of fun as we get to the new movie. We want to remind you also that this is not all we do. We do all kinds of crazy stuff. Subject Cinema, Platinum Rose's Garden, Front Row 5 and 10, which will finally be back next month, Catastrophe, Vortex, Kirkham Report, Anthony Lamberti's show, Aunt B's Comic Grotto, and Cavebabble with Eric and Valerie Lyon.
Yep.
Plus our mini shows. We have other projects going on. We have some original productions.
Yep.
And we have it all. You can find out all about it by visiting PNRNetworks.com or eCinemaOne.com. And we hope you'll become a Patreon member as well and help support us. We can do more and more the more support we have. So hopefully you'll come on board. It's $2 a month or more. $5 a month or more gets you 3 extra podcasts that are available only to Patreon patrons, including Kim's Kaiju Corner show and 2 other movie shows from Subject Cinema.
Yep.
So check us out at PNRNetworks at patreon.com/PNRNetworks.
And if you'd like to follow either of us on Twitter, you can follow me at PlatinumRosella@Twitter.com.
And I'm at eCinemaOne and eCinemaBoston, and also at TKR Online for my music stuff, the Kirkham Report.
Yep.
So until tomorrow, and the big day for the release of Legendary's Godzilla King of the Monsters, one last chance to skew. I'm TC Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
For the Big G Tokyo Town StompDown.
Bye now.
You've been listening to the Big G Tokyo Town StompDown from Subject Cinema, Kaiju Corner at eCinemaOne.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.